Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by gifts from Dave and Jamie Cummings, the Hartwig family, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckheads join me shortly. Our topics this week: Governor Greitens facing a showdown in the Show Me State, state of the Kansas budget about to be decided, and there will be a new sheriff in town, or more correctly, in the county, plus roast and toast. But we begin with our Newsmaker segment and continue our efforts to look at public works projects in Kansas City, Missouri, and how they're progressing. Joining me today to discuss what a smart city is and how Kansas City became one is Bob Bennett, the city's Chief Innovation Officer. Mr. Bennett joined the city in 2015 after a career in the U.S. Army following his graduation from West Point. Mr. Bennett, thanks for coming in. Welcome to Ruckus.
Thanks for having me. It's a great day.
If you will, give us a working definition of what a smart city means, what a smart city is.
In its bare essence, a smart city allows 21st century citizens to take advantage of a city that uses 21st century tools. We're trying to integrate sensors, we're trying to integrate data analysis, and we're trying to use all of the things that people take for granted, like a cell phone in their pocket, and actually apply them to things that matter to them in their daily lives and interactions with the city, like water or trash pickup and those types of things.
So it all involves technology at one level or another?
At some point it does. Where we try to differentiate ourselves as a smart city is we focus first on the people problems and then find out which technologies help us to do those more efficiently.
I heard you on one of the programs that aired on KCPT say downtown Kansas City contains the 54 smartest blocks in the world. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. And quite frankly, it's because we have done our R&D efforts very effectively, which stands for, in this case, rip off and duplicate. We stole our smart city lighting methodology from the city of San Diego. We took our kiosk methodology from the city of New York. We took our Wi-Fi methodology from the city of Barcelona. And what we added as a Kansas City effort was our data analysis platform on top of it, where we're actually to the point of doing predictive analytics and figuring out how to start doing things as a city before a situation becomes a crisis.
I'm kind of intrigued by the kiosks in downtown Kansas City and what you have to say about them. I think they're a great innovation to have, and they're both beneficial for people who live here and for people who visit here, I assume.
Absolutely. They actually started out as a public safety issue. They had their birth in New York City, with the idea being that after the Twin Towers fell, they needed a way to direct people to different locations. We saw that utility in Kansas City, and having a 7-foot-tall iPhone that, in the case of severe weather, could direct folks to shelter when needed.
Well, what kind of information can you get on a kiosk?
3 types, the first of which is to direct them to shelter if there's a problem. I can take over the network in about 5 minutes and or less.
If you want to find a place to go to lunch downtown, will it work for that?
Absolutely it will. You press the area where it says food, and at a very hyper-local level, to the point of that individual machine, it'll draw you concentric circles as to where to go to find whatever food that you're looking for, and you can even search for a specific thing. If you're looking for a BLT, it'll take you to the Peanut on Broadway.
Can you make a phone call on there?
If it's a 911 call, yes. If you're just making a regular telephone call, no.
All right, let's talk about what a smart city can do, what this technology can do to benefit the budget, to reduce it or make it more effective. I think you talk about it can have an impact on traffic signals, on city streets, street maintenance, and on from there.
Essentially what we've done in our Smart City program is we have taken about 4,200 city data sets that we already own. Things like, what is the condition of our road? We combine that with weather data that we get because we have an airport and therefore we have access to FAA quality weather. And then the third piece of that is the amount and type of traffic that we're using. We combine those 3 factors and we end up with the ability to predict where potholes will form 77 days after a freeze-thaw pattern. What that allows us to do now is, instead of waiting for a pothole, we fix the spider cracks, or we fill in areas where we know there's going to be a problem. And instead of mitigating a crisis, we're now doing preventative street maintenance.
So you can be in the prediction business.
We absolutely are in the prediction business, just like the businesses that interact with us every single day.
What's the next innovation we should be watching for in Kansas City?
I'm doing two things right now. The first of which is I'm trying to figure out how to do a flu and sickness prediction algorithm so that we can actually get to the point of when X number of people cough on a bus, and much like you have a shot spotter radar that tells you where gunshots go off in some cities, we're going to put a cough spotter microphone in our buses. And the volume and the number of coughs will tell us where we need to put more vitamin C into school lunches, where we need to encourage people to take better care of themselves, and try to get to the point where we can intervene and keep people at work.
Looking forward to all of that. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate your time.
It was great being here. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. And that is Kansas City, Missouri's Chief Innovation Officer, Bob Bennett. Now let's meet the panel and start a ruckus. Lisa Johnston is a consultant and columnist. The legendary Steve Rose is a Johnson County civic leader and a Kansas City Star columnist. He asked me to say that. Terry Riley is a former councilman and now heads Transformation Consultants. And attorney Laura McConwell is a former 3-term mayor of Mission, Kansas. Great to have all of you here today with me. Before we get to our first topic, I would like to say welcome to our studio audience for this week's program. We are pleased to have with us members of the Producers Society at KCPT. These folks help support public television financially and in other ways. We appreciate your involvement. Feel free to give yourselves deafening applause. All right, in the aftermath of the graphic and stunning allegations against Governor Eric Greitens, residents of the Show Me state may be saying, show me less. Governor Greitens, facing intense criticism following accounts of his assignations with a former paramour, now faces a second felony charge, computer tampering. This involves the alleged use by his political campaign of a donors list obtained without permission from the charity Greitens founded, The Mission Continues. While the felony charges of computer tampering and invasion of privacy will be decided in the courtroom, Greitens' political fate will likely be decided in the state legislature. Based on what we now know, how likely do you think it is that Greitens will be impeached, convicted, and forced out of office as governor? And let's start with Terry.
Oh, wow, that was a lot to take in. Well, first of all, on the first charge that Greitens received, felony charge that he received, there were 80 votes already in the Speaker's office. After the second, more came in. And so what I've been told by my sources is that there's already over 120 signatures now to impeach. That coupled with there's a struggle going on. This is a struggle within the Republican Party with the new people with Greitens and the old lobbyists, the old guard that's in there in the establishment. There are button heads there. I can't give any names, but I tell you this. They are very, 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 very determined to get him out.
Do you think they're very determined?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe he will end up subsequently impeached. He will not resign.
Okay, but impeachment is just the beginning. He has to be convicted by the Senate, and 7 people will be appointed in the Senate if this proceeds, and they will make the decision. Are you convinced that he will be convicted as well?
I don't know about that, but I know about the House. I can't give you any information yet about the Senate. The next show I'll be able to give you that, but I tell you in the House they're prepared to move forward.
Steve Greitens says there is absolutely no chance that he'll resign. Should he reconsider then?
He's probably the only one in the world other than maybe his wife who doesn't think he's going to. He has to. I don't really think it's going to. I can't believe that this would go all the way to impeachment. I mean, I remember Richard Nixon. I'm old enough to remember when he said, you know, he would never resign. And
you were a big fan of Nixon, as I recall.
Well,
once upon a time.
Compared to some people that are in office today, he looks great.
Who in the world are you talking about?
That would be Donald J. Trump. But let's continue with that.
I think he has to come to grips in the reality of the fact that his political future is over. There's nothing he can achieve on his agenda with the current legislature. there's nothing other than a paycheck is the only reason that he would have to stay in office.
He keeps saying he's innocent until proven guilty, and of course that's true. However, he is so tarnished and damaged that it's going to be impossible for him to be effective in the role of governor. But is he going to resign? I don't think so. And once upon a time, some politicians had enough sense of shame and decency that when it got to a critical point, they would bow out. But I just don't think he's going to do it.
Laura, you're an attorney. Let me ask you this. Do you find it unusual that the attorney for the lady involved in the Greitens affairs, ex-husband's, the attorney for the ex-husband suddenly got $100,000 in cash from an undisclosed source?
Well, I think no doubt a lot of it's politically motivated, but he also, the behavior, what he did was wrong and bad. And whether he's convicted or not, it's gross and it's a sideshow. And I mean, to me, when you want, I guess, call me Pollyanna. When you run for office, I think you should look at yourself being a public servant and wanting to serve the public and serve the state and serve those who elected you. And this is all just a sideshow that takes away from taking care of the state's business.
Okay, Pollyanna, is it unusual, though, for an attorney to receive $100,000 in cash from undisclosed sources?
Well, I think it's pretty odd. I don't do a lot of, and I don't do criminal defense work, but I know sometimes criminal defense attorneys get money from different types of sources. But yeah, I think getting $100,000 to pursue this is clearly to me it's politically motivated, and it isn't about trying to protect this guy's ex-wife, because I mean, he's thrust her front and center. She didn't come, and she's not the one that started it, that brought it up, that said, hey, it was this scorned ex-husband who's the one that brought it all, brought her in the forefront, Greitens in the forefront, and yeah.
Final quick question to Terry. You were in the legislature at one time, were you not?
Yes.
It is said that Greitens didn't work very hard to establish rapport with his Republican colleagues or Democrats as well. Would he be in better shape now if he had worked harder the first year in office to make friendships and to work out deals?
Absolutely. He had no, first of all, he had no relationship, but he didn't call on any of the legislature and or the Senate to help him in recruiting department heads. He brought in department heads. He said he only wanted people from Yale, Oxford. He wanted the creme de la creme. And he believed that the legislature didn't have the intellectual capacity to tell him how to appoint those people. And now
that's why he chose not to appear on Ruckus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think it's a scorched earth type of politics.
Right.
And he came in, he knew what the best, he was going to get rid of all the bad actors, and he was going to clean house. And you know, when you're in representative government, you got to work with people, whether you like them or not.
And when you scorch earth, it's not very good if you need their votes.
If you need those,
when you're going to be impeached.
Okay, we got to move ahead. There is a technical term to explain what went wrong when the Kansas legislature cast its vote to finalize the school finance bill. That very technical term is oops. Legislators who had headed home for a planned recess learned there was a miscalculation in the math, and the bill was $80 million short of the $534 million goal. Governor Jeff Collier went ahead and signed the bill, expressing confidence the legislators would correct the error when they returned for the wrap-up session. Will the legislature redeem Collier's confidence and restore the $80 million? Steve?
Yeah, but it's not going to be pretty, because there are going to be a number of conservative legislators who are going to use this opportunity to vote no. That they're going to try to sabotage the deal. At the same time, from what I understand, there are enough Democrats coming forward and others who are more moderate who didn't vote the same way going in, who are going to change their vote and vote yes, that they accept this deal. In the end, it's almost assuredly going to get through. There's one other element to this technical thing. A rural chairman slipped in some legislation that said local school money shall be used for state funding of schools. They should count that. That also has to get unraveled and undone and corrected in this few days that they have when they come back. They've only got just
8 days, I think.
Yeah, 8 days.
And they return as we're doing this program on Thursday morning.
Exactly.
Lisa, same question. Will the legislature redeem Collier's confidence and restore the $80 million?
They may, but it's not 100% certainty. Hopefully they will come together, enough of them, and find a fix for these problems, because it's embarrassing that that happened. It's just ridiculous that they didn't see that prior to the vote. But this is a real difficult situation because it's not even yet certain that the court is going to find this acceptable, this 5-year titration progressive financing situation that they're trying to put forward as a solution. And so they may have to go back to the drawing board after this, depending on what the court says.
Laura, what did you think? $534 million over 5 years, will that be enough to satisfy the state Supreme Court?
Well, I think it's quite a bit. The court, there were other elements that the court wanted besides money, and they wanted to know, what the plan was, is to bring a number of the schools up. And so, to me, it's not just the money. And I sure as heck hope that they resolve it. It's my understanding that the House is going to kind of work on those details, and the Senate's going to vote up or down, whatever the House comes up with. And I hope they resolve it. Once again, I don't think it's fair to the citizens of Kansas and the school children, and to be.
I can tell you this: if the conservatives somehow succeeded in killing this thing, they would be dead meat in the next election.
Yeah.
Because the Supreme Court would close schools, and they would be hung in effigy, because they would be totally blamed for that.
As you may know, Terry, the state of Kansas, since it raised income taxes, is collecting a lot more revenue than before. In fact, 500 million more, I think. And it may be possible that they can fund this $534 million, the increase for schools in the state, without a tax increase. That would be good news, would it not?
Yes, it would be. But they need to have the political will to move forward and get the additional $80 million and fund education for our young people. We always say the children are our future, but they neglect in funding the future of our country.
Well, there was some talk that there might be another tax cut being contemplated by the Kansas legislature. Do you see that as a likelihood? Since income has increased
I certainly
so much.
hope not, but there's a lot of talk about it, especially among the Republican members who are saying, oh, it's an election year, let's do this. And from my perspective, that would be like someone who's had huge credit card problems. They've got all kinds of maxed out credit cards, they've got all kinds of debt, and they manage to save some money for a few months, and then they go out and blow it instead of doing something responsible with it, like paying down their debt.
In this money that we're talking about that they're going to have that would avoid taxes is a $138 million windfall to the state of Kansas because of the federal tax reform. So some of the conservative legislators are saying, hey, that's like a tax increase. We need to give that money back to the people, but of course if they do that, then they got to go around and, if they want school finance, find it somewhere else.
We'll see a column of yours supporting that in the Star, will we not?
No, absolutely.
All right, we got to head
That's going to be a governor's issue, because that's going to be a governor's issue.
The resignation of the Jackson County Sheriff, Mike Sharp, following disclosure of romantic tryst with a former employee, is causing some county legislators, the media, and the public to take a closer look at the messy business of Jackson County government and how it can be fixed. County Executive Frank White, facing mortgage problems with his home, is at odds with the county legislature over who controls the purse strings. The state auditor is coming to town and hopes to resolve that confusion. Meantime, the Jackson County Jail needs massive repairs or rebuilding. There's continuing controversy over the property assessment process, and there's even some debate over who has authority to name a new sheriff. Do you see any quick fixes for what ails Jackson County government? Let's start with Laura, who's had experience with local government.
No, I don't. I don't necessarily see a quick fix, but I would hope that the voters of Jackson County would send a pretty good message to the Jackson County government and also the city of Kansas City that we need to address these things. They've got to fix the jail. They need to have better communication. What the sheriff did was ridiculous, and so we have on two ends. We have somebody new with Greitens who was not what we'd like, and then we have somebody who's a long-term person who's not what we liked, and apparently term limits have come up again, which I'm not necessarily a fan of, but I understand why we talk about them, and I don't know, they need to get their arms around it, and when they've got county legislators that have been there for 30 years and they still have all these problems, then maybe you need to get rid of them.
But you know from being in Johnson County that there are very little or to no term limits, and the county government and city governments function very, very well.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan either of them. I think that, and staff ends up being much more powerful when they know that the legislators are going to keep turning over.
Absolutely,
So
which I don't like.
Yeah, there's something, there's some bad sides, say, for term limits.
One of the things that they're looking at with the appointment of a new sheriff, there's been a task force put together,
Yes.
but it's been a task force of the legislature. So Frank is actually reaching out to the legislators saying, hey, send me a group of individuals to me and we will make a decision based upon that. And I think that's an attempt to try to bring everyone back together. Also, I had to do my own check, and even though I'm not a reporter, I said, let me find out if this story is actually true about Frank's about to lose his house. And it's not. That's an old story, it's a retread story, and they brought that back up, and it's not true.
Oh,
And so,
I was going to say about Frank is the
Yeah.
community loves Frank.
Right.
And so the legislators need to learn to get along with Frank, because I don't think Frank's going anywhere.
No.
And
yeah,
and then Frank also needs to work with the I think it's a two-way street. But
absolutely.
It's interesting because it seems like the theme of our show today is all the ways that elected officials can disappoint and embarrass us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think with some of these, local and county governmental kinds of positions, we need the community to be engaged, involved, interested in voting, and interested in stepping forward to run. We don't need term limits when, like Steve says, we have great people in office, but when we don't, we need people to step forward and challenge and get into those positions so that we can have good public servants in office.
we need the community to pay attention and not just listen to the sound bites.
Right.
Not just and be educated.
Yeah, and not just get involved during presidential campaigns. That's the biggest problem we have.
Yeah.
You have school board races, you have county commissioner
Yes.
races,
City
and
council.
City council. People tend not to get out. But when you have a presidential race, everyone wants to come out and wear their sticker, I voted. But what did you
Right.
do for that city council race or that school board race?
Steve, there's some discussion in a Kansas City Star article saying people are looking at merging Kansas City, Missouri and Jackson County a la Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas. That would strike me as an impossibility.
It strikes me the same way. End of story.
Thank you for that detailed response.
No, I mean, it seems wild and crazy
Yeah.
to me.
Well, what about a new county charter? There's talk of that, and those are not easy to put together, are they?
No, it's not. I mean, the county, and I would change the name anyway. I would call them county commissioners. And I would not merge the two together. I think that's a non-starter.
Well, you've got Independence and Lee Summit.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with those cities?
Right. I mean, you're just going to boot them out, and their government. I like the mayor of Independence. Mayor of Raytown's doing a good job. Mayor of Blue Springs, and I think they're all doing a good job. We don't need to merge them all together and show them how to run their areas.
Okay, now
That's
we're
how I
going
look
to
at it.
head to the soapbox for Roast and Toast, where the Ruckettes have 30 seconds each to toss bouquets or brickbats at people and events in the news. And we start with Laura.
So I am going to roast or toast Lamont McIntyre. Lamont was a young man who was wrongfully convicted in Wyandotte County a number of years ago, and through the Free Innocence Project, Cheryl Pilot was the lead attorney. He was released in October, and Mark Dupree, who was the district attorney in Wyandotte County, didn't make them go through the whole hearing and went ahead and dismissed charges. And having met that young man, anyway, I wish him well, and I toast him. And
Okay, Steve.
Well, I'd like to roast the sloppiness of the Kansas Attorney General's office that indicted the wrong entity in calling it the Schlitterbahn Water Park of Kansas City, Kansas, which is not the name of the entity. And the judge basically said, we're going to throw that out because you can't do anything with an entity that doesn't exist. That is Bush League law, and they should be roasted for that.
Mr. Riley.
Scott Pruitt, EPA administrator, it is a joke that they're keeping this man in place with this soundproof phone booth. I mean, I don't know, he's done doubles as Superman or something. I don't know what it is. That coupled with him needing detail of 10 people, first class seating because he doesn't want to hear from the public. It is a public embarrassment. This guy needs to go today. I don't care. He needs to go.
Lisa?
Roast.
A roast to all Kansas legislators proposing a tax cut in order to curry favor with voters in an election year. Policy needs to be based on what's best for the fiscal health of the state, and we've just begun to see a glimmer of progress after years of fiscal crisis. Until and unless school financing is worked out and all funding sources that were depleted and payments that were delayed are rectified, it would be outlandish and irresponsible to have a tax cut.
All right, and finally, in Japan, a robot is running for mayor of a small city, promising fairness and balance and to settle all conflicts between citizens. Now, when you consider it, robots might be preferable to some human candidates. Robots are, after all, artificial intelligence. Some human candidates, after all, are just artificial, without the intelligence. And that's Ruckus for this week. We're back next Thursday at 7. Now for the Ruckettes and the crew, and all the folks here today who have joined us in the studio, Mike Shannon saying thanks very much for watching, and good night.